Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of November 30th. I'm Ryan Miller, and he is Matt Amberga.
I am Matt Amberga.
And this being Book Club for Movies, we watch one movie a week, and then we talk about it, and you can too. Book Club at podcast.com.
Formovies.org.
Okay.
Let's try it again and see if...
Podcast.
Yep, that's right.
At bookclubformovies.com and Facebook or Twitter.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
This week, still weaning, everybody. We did October late. We didn't do October at all, actually, technically.
Technically, no.
We moved it into November. We made the fake holiday November ween this time, and this, I didn't realize, technically, still November. I don't know if this is going to be the last one or not. I feel like we haven't reached a
We got one more.
consensus.
Yeah, I think
do we? Okay,
we've got
right.
one more to go.
But we did just make this one right under the wire in recording it, I guess, by the time it comes out.
It's
actually, you know what?
The Ween Wire?
Scratch all of that because last week's episode didn't even come out yet because we're at the data cap for our hosting plan.
Oh, man. You should just, like, the Ween Wire is currently on hold.
But it's on YouTube because that's always free.
To
so
you.
I tweeted that out.
Cool.
Hardcore book clubbers know to find it on YouTube, but that'll also be up on all the streaming services. Tomorrow, what are we in, a 30-month? Yeah, tomorrow's the 1st, right? Technically.
I think it is. It sounds
okay, you look that up. Let's do some research.
Yep,
here.
it is. That would make it a scant. I am a scant. If you count today, 16 days.
Whoa!
From potentially having a birthday. We'll see if I die between now and then. We don't know. We don't know.
Doxed.
Yeah, I live in my social security number is.
You could quite possibly get 2 book clubbers this week with Color Out of Space on the 1st, and then this here movie called The Conjuring. I don't know if we said that's the one we're doing this week yet.
We're conjuring it up right now.
But we're doing it, The Conjuring. Matt, do you have a synopsis for The Conjuring?
I do. The Conjuring is going to come at you in an hour and 52 minutes. Written by Chad and Carrie W. Hayes. Directed by James Wan. Starring Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Ron Livingston, Lily Taylor, Shanley Caswell, Haley McFarland. I always say Farmiga. Her name is Vera Farmiga. Farmiga. I don't know why there's an N in there. It always is. I say Tessa Farmiga. It's not a Minga. She's Farmiga. Farmiga.
Do you remember it this way? She's very Farmiga.
Mi amiga. Alrighty, here is your book club for movies synopsis for James Wan Million's The Conjuring. Deep in the ocean, Arthur Curry. Wait, I watched the wrong movie.
Oh, the Wan movie.
In 1971, after moving to an old farmhouse, the Perron family begins to experience things of a supernatural nature. After 2 of the children are attacked by a spirit, their mother Caroline intrigues paranormal investigators / demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren to come and investigate this potential haunted house.
Amazing. So I have never seen this movie before. It's been on my list for a long, long time.
You haven't? Let's play hide and clap right now. The scariest.
The scariest. Does that game exist outside of this movie?
I don't know, but that whole sequence is scary.
All of it. Yeah, there's frequent callbacks to hide and clap, and they're all harrowing.
The clapping is awful. I don't know why. How is something that simple? Like, it really is unnerving.
The story of this movie.
Yeah.
How is something that simple? You have seen this before.
A multitude of times. Saw it in the theater.
Okay. I don't want to get too far into this, but this movie made me miss the theater for maybe the first time, not just since Corona. Like, I've been tired of the whole theater experience for a long time, and we'll still go and do still love it to some extent, but have been tired of getting gouged for a big, long while. This movie made me miss getting gouged.
It was definitely a good movie to catch in the theater, for sure.
Also, it made me consider the theater going experience for horror movies, which I feel like we don't get out too much. I couldn't tell you the last actual horror movie I saw in the theater because my wife is a little bit more discerning one could say, than me from time to time. She also doesn't like to be scared as much. She also draws the line at like satanic stuff, which I guess would include this movie to some extent.
But doesn't this movie also tap into the Catholicism that is required to fight the Satan?
Sure.
The great
yes,
Satan?
It's ultimately a good, feel-good triumph over evil.
Yeah, it's a good family movie. I mean, it takes place
It is
a family movie.
Also, I mean, even by my standards, kind of tame as far as I know. We always get into the gore conversation here and there, or even just blood conversation. It's by far the tamest one of those we've seen this ween.
Oh, sure,
for sure.
Yeah, and this is a great example of I mean, so you're gonna laugh at this, but
yes.
this movie and James Wan is actually pretty good about this. It's real similar to Saw in the sense that there's a lot more going on that you're not seeing, and it's left to your imagination, which is what makes them so effective. The later Saw movies after the first one, they definitely like there's an uptick. Like they grew it. But the first movie, there is really only one scene, maybe two. There's two scenes that have blood in them, and one of them, yeah, it's a lot of blood, but it's like it's off screen. You don't see it. The other one, it's the way it's cut, barely anything. You're getting bits and bobs here, and it's way more the
bits of Bob.
That's technically that's kind of true actually, because she has to cut the guy open to get the key out of him. But it's similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre in that for all of the like the things that you hear about Saw and how gory it's not. It's significantly less gory than you've ever been led to believe.
And correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
James Wan didn't direct any of the other Saw movies past the first, right?
That's a great question.
I'm
I
pretty
believe
sure,
you're correct. He produced all of them. Boozman directed 2 and 3.
Boozman.
Yeah, the Boozman. And Boozman came back for the most recent one that hasn't been released yet that I'm really anxious to see with Chris Rock.
Of course, they're still going. Oh, Chris Rock.
Yeah, it's called The Book of Spiral, and it's called Spiral, the book from the Book of Saw. And instead of it being a continuation of Saw and using Jigsaw, it's a spin-off somehow that's got relation to it.
Spiral off.
That's a spiral off. Somebody get Billy Zane.
Yeah, well, and the reason I say that is because I think with this movie, less so Aquaman, although I appreciate the mention, I think I'm getting a handle on James Wan a little bit, especially with The Conjuring as a director.
Hold on for a second. I'm gonna interrupt that.
Please.
And here is specifically why. You may be resistant to this, but I'm gonna say go back and watch Aquaman again, and specifically every moment underwater. And in particular, all of the trench stuff. That is all like you will catch. It's James Wan doing all of this on a way bigger scale.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not resistant to that for sure. I just mean that as you know, the story goes when directors are tapped for the bigger stuff.
Sure.
It can get a little muddled, especially Aquaman. I mean, the number one thing I remember about Aquaman is it being
muddled because of
possibly 2 movies.
Because of water.
Yes. Anyway, so I don't discount that for sure, but it was neat to see this thing and be like, oh, and I've only seen Saw. I think I might have only seen the riff tracks even. Have I seen Saw?
The first.
Is there Danny Glover?
The first Saw is Danny Glover and Cary Elwes.
Okay. Anyway, there's kind of if I had to choose one word, maybe it would be grounded style to the stuff he does. And it is this movie in particular, and maybe we can get into it now, a just really tight, kind of concise story. Did he write this thing? He didn't.
No, he did not.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, I know that because part of the history I did read up was that, as you mentioned last week, the Warrens are real people.
Yeah.
Real demonologists, I guess, right?
Yep.
And they have a number of fantastic stories, and this was one that Lorraine Warren. Mr. Warren.
Lorraine is alive. Ed died.
Ed, yes, thank you. Ed Warren played to producer Tony DeRosa Grund, I guess. And he just did a treatment from the tape that Ed played him. But he ran around with that thing for 14 years trying to get it made, apparently.
Crazy, right?
And when he finally handed it over to Chad and Carrie Hayes, the Hayes brothers, they say this is what they did, even though I don't really see this manifest until maybe halfway through the film. He says he changed it into a movie from the point of view of the Warrens.
Right.
And from that point, it became I'm sure there were other changes, but it became a 6-studio bid war that still took a few years, but eventually, hit it with, I think New Line finally grabbed onto it.
Yeah.
So Juan picks it up because I guess he's attracted to the real life nature of the thing.
Yeah.
At this point, he's already done Saw, and he's had success with also Patrick Wilson in Insidious, which I haven't seen and is now also on my list.
Yeah.
Any good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Actually, very strong. It's a different movie, but yeah, it's still strong flick. Totally.
Okay, cool. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to it. And
yeah.
Because I do feel like I'm getting a feel for Juan and his stuff, when I say it's concise, like, all credit to the writers as well, but I also think Juan with his style, like, it's a perfect combination because there's rules to this thing. There are, like I said, very grounded portrayals of all this fantastic, even classic horror movie tropes with, exorcisms and conjurings, I guess. Although I don't know. Conjuring almost seemed like a misnomer for a bit.
It's a great title, but
yes.
but it really doesn't. They're not conjuring anything.
With the exorcism, maybe because he like pulls her out. I guess spoiler.
Sure.
But I think it's a stretch. Yeah. Anyway.
Whatever. I'll go with it.
I will too, because honestly, super like this thing. Really, really like this movie.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think I love that word that you're using, concise, for the way he's kind of, because. So what I'll say about the sequels to this is that there is.
I was going to ask you about that too.
They actually, the second one really, really, really well done.
Straight up The Conjuring 2 with Patrick and Vera.
Yep. And they're in all of the ones that are called Conjuring, anything like that. They are in it. And there's 2 more coming, or there are 2 more after that. There's 1 more on the way. There's a 3rd one. That was,
me being a newcomer, I have very little faith in the one that's coming up just because of the title alone. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's not a great title. The
devil made me do it.
But we'll see what happens.
Sure.
I will say the second one, it's not as concise. I can't say that, but I can say that so much of what he built and the way he filmed and the way the story is told does crossover.
That is James Wan again too, right?
Yeah, he did The Conjuring 2 as well. So it does follow. And it's really good, and it builds on those characters, it builds on the world, and at that point, the part of the thing that's real fun about part 2 is at that point they recognized, okay, we've got something here. So there's a ton of stuff in there. There are all sorts of little like the sequel, far more so than the first one, does things like tells you who the villain is in the background in weird ways by spelling the name out in odd ways that if you're not looking for them, you'll totally not see them. But the minute you go back, you go, oh, like there's a sign that says love, and the V is very big, and then under it is the rest of the name, and it's all this really great stuff. And there's like characters in the background that'll later show up in other movies that are just kind of like things from their life or past or what have you. So they really built off of the Insidious, Conjuring, and created this thing with the Warrens, and that's
cool.
So, but keeping with the original, The Conjuring here,
the one we're doing this, the movie, this show,
the part of the thing that makes, I think, this feel so grounded is that you have 2 really, really good actors in the parent roles with Ron Livingston and Lily Taylor, and both of them do such a good job playing the early 70s, late 60s parents that are now coming into a new place with their already large family. And Lily Taylor is, for me, I mean, she is universally good. I've never seen her anything where I didn't think she was.
You're probably right.
She was pretty great.
I still can't stop thinking about her X-Files episode. I think I mention it every time.
You do. It's good. Ron Livingston.
Office Space.
Can't say the exact same thing, but he has made so many good choices in films. Like, I mean, I can't honestly say he's ever been a problem in the movie. You know,
Sure.
like he's sometimes he's just there. Like Game Night, he's kind of just there. But every time he's on screen in Game Night, he's fun.
Oh yeah, what is he in Game Night?
He was the brother that gets kidnapped.
Oh, right.
He's like the entire thrust of the movie that you hardly ever see.
I could rewatch that. I could really rewatch that.
I would like to rewatch that, actually. I haven't seen it in a while, so
Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, but then you know, again, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, they are so good. And actually, I have to say this, there's a moment in the sequel that, like, this movie no
keep going back
because it's like this movie, you get them and they play off each other so well. Like, they have chemistry that just, it's there's something really kind of magical about those two together, the way they look at each other and everything. And in the sequel, like, they cement it with this one little moment where Patrick Wilson plays the guitar to her and sings to her, and it's like fantastic. And this movie, watch the sequel, man. You're gonna
definitely.
Yeah,
it's on the list.
But
in fact, I will have to fight myself to not watch it if we want to save it for next. I'm already planning movies for next Ween, whether it hits on October or November. So I don't know. That and Insidious, actually, for that matter.
So let's dive into this flick.
All right. Yeah, I feel like we were going somewhere specific. Oh, you mentioned performances. So before we move off of that, maybe I will agree, and it is speaking of it not being from the point of view of the Warrens for not most of the movie, certainly, but the beginning of the film, certainly the first act, maybe a bit beyond, is Lily Taylor and Ron Livingston's movie. It is their movie from their point of view. Yep. They're moving into the farmhouse. And I do really appreciate and like their performances. I think the Warrens are meant to be the heavy hitters. I think they are the more, maybe, I don't want to say established actors because they all turn it in, but there was a bit to Miss Farmiga's performance that I will classify as kind of a fluorescent light, as we like to say around here. That's a term that that Rachel Adams coined, really. Rachel McAdams? McAdams. Wow, back to Game Night. Just in that, even though I like stuff that she's in and can possibly even enjoy her performances and stuff, we just recently watched Red Eye. I don't know if we've talked about that again, but we've talked about that movie several times.
Maybe one of her best.
Looking for scary movies for my daughter, and she really dug that one too. Anyway.
Oh, good one.
That the fluorescent light thing being that I understand she's accomplished, and I can kind of still see it, and I know for most people it's not a thing, but for some people they can kind of see the fluorescent light flickering where others can't. So it has nothing to do with, it has more to do with the person seeing it than not, right? So I don't know what it is. It's just that Vera Farmiga in this movie just didn't seem perfectly suited for the role or the screaming or the emotion at times. She was kind of, maybe if there was a wink link, she might have been it for me.
Which I think is interesting because she spent a lot of time with Lorraine Warren, who, if you watch videos of Lorraine Warren, you will see that maybe you're seeing Vera Farmiga, but she's...
Oh, really? She's that good then.
She's
maybe.
Pretty close. She got quite a few of the mannerisms, and there's a feeling behind the character. Yeah, I think she did. But again, we've had this conversation too, where I actually like Rachel McAdams, so right. I don't see that as much as you do. But then there's the Ellen Page situation where, boy oh boy, is she a fluorescent light that is just like it's a machine gun flickering for me.
How much are we going to talk about Umbrella Academy for TVVB?
Okay amount.
Okay.
I got 2 whole seasons to discuss, man.
But and maybe this is bringing us right to the intro of the movie anyways, because yes, they're moving out to the farmhouse. They then It's honestly just a series of spooky spooks, as I like to call them, where there's something in the shadow, something moves, something makes a noise, something tugs on a leg. You don't see anything until probably that first act break, which I would say is probably the monster on top of the armoire. Would it be?
Harmoire.
The armoire. Yeah. That's what it, because
it's going to attack.
But yes, up until then, just kind of less is more.
Yeah.
And I feel like you brought that up already.
Yeah,
actually.
well, it was the reference to like Texas Chainsaw and Saw itself, where it is a whole lot of imagination is leading you to think the worst of the worst.
And that is this movie, and seen in combination with the ones we've already done, Creep Show. What did we do last? Oh, it hasn't been released yet. Sorry, Color Out of Space.
Yeah, huge difference. Like.
They're both
night and
Haunt,
day.
Maybe the singular, like if we're going in order of less is more, it would be Conjuring, Haunt, and then the other two, but still very much a more is more approach.
Yeah. The Conjuring in terms of that is significant. Like there's a gap, there's a chasm.
Yes. And maybe that's just my type of movie. The other conversation I can't stop having is about, I don't even want to call it the nihilism conversation at this point, because I don't think this fits in, but this does less is more right up my alley.
Sure.
Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Maybe that's what I appreciate more.
It's fun too, because these are the types of movies that Beth prefers. Like you and her, you and her are on the same kind of wavelength in terms of the horror you prefer. For sure. It's not that you won't necessarily watch the other stuff, but it's also stuff that you're not necessarily going to be like, I'm actively going to search for it.
I'm seeing the common denominator here.
Yes. I surround myself with people who make me feel better or worse about the awful things I like to visually engage in.
No. But I will say this regardless, because there are good and bad movies of this, I still think this is a fantastic one of these. Like, sure, this can go very wrong. They can fall into jump scare after jump scare. Not that any of these aren't, that you might classify them as jump scares here and there, but everything surrounded is so well done and looks so good. Like, my heart was racing during this movie than any of the other movies.
Nice.
Like, more so. And for obvious moments too, like, it's coming.
Yeah, totally.
And sometimes even with the framing, from where it's coming, but they consistently subvert that here with this one in a way that, again, constantly kept me like scared.
Well, and I think you're touching on a really, really interesting thing that I would actually like. I'd love to. This is probably not the right time to necessarily get into that.
Sounds perfect.
Full discussion. But one of the consistent problems with horror films is the jump scare issue. And that's not to say that jump scares are a bad thing inherently, but there is a difference between the way this movie engages them and other films might. And this does it by building around, like, you have a full idea of things that are going on. You can feel it. There are other movies where, you feel the jump scare coming, but there's nothing behind it. Like, the story isn't really isn't that engaging. You're not engaged with the characters so much. You're expecting it. Maybe you don't even like the characters. That's another one with horror movies, is that, you get a ton of jump scares around people that you don't even like. You're kind of forced into liking them because they're the hero or not the killer, right? Whereas with something like this, you have so much body to the characters, to the work around the scare, that even though the scare is coming and it might not even be the jump that you're thinking it's going to be or something similar, or it's placed right, it's paced right, and it's held for the right amount of time too. It's there's a right amount of tension to a jump scare. And James Wan totally hits it in this movie with that keeping tension while using simple tricks too. That's one of the best parts of the movie is how many simple tricks are used here. And again, I mentioned it at the beginning, the hide and clap thing, the fact that the clapping comes up so much and it becomes so unsettling, especially when the hands come up like right next to the head. Like
that, oh man, yep.
Horrifying, man. There was not a person in the theater.
We are ruining this movie.
There is not a person in the theater who didn't go,
and that was right where I was like, man, like I kind of wish I was in the theater for this, because it's got the whole captive audience thing going on there. You're with other people. It's huge. It's even louder. Like the sound is great in this regardless, but yeah, in a theater I could see it really just getting under your skin even more. Yeah, and that's the first act easy of the film, maybe a little bit, and we do get parallel glimpses of Ed and Lorraine Warren, Patrick and Vera, as they're going through their history a little bit and talking about what they do. I mean, the movie starts off running, honestly. They're giving or showing a video or doing an interview. I forget how it's surfaced, but they're talking with the owners of the Annabelle doll. I know that has its own thing at this point. But yeah, the movie hits the ground running with that, and we get a little bit more of them back and forth. The movie runs in parallel until it gets so bad. I want to say, is it after the armoire?
She gets trapped in the basement, and then the spirit runs up, or the spirit shows up in the bedroom and attacks the two daughters. Okay,
it gets so bad that they can't kind of deny it anymore.
Yeah, there are a number of things that happen that are like before the Warrens and the it begins with a P.
Perrones?
The Perrones, yeah. Before the Perrones decide to engage them, which is actually a cool little, like you mentioned at the beginning, that Annabelle is kind of our first meeting with the Warrens, and Annabelle's not alive at this point. She's just the doll. They've done whatever they've done with the doll.
She's alive later. They have this. Speaking of the universe, they have this. I think they're talking to somebody who's interviewing. I don't know. They're bringing this interviewer through this room where they've kind of taken mementos from each of their cases, and it's just this entire room full of trinkets. And they have some great lines about, it's like taking the guns off the street. It's better that they're in here, or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Don't touch anything in here.
Right. Even before that, though, I could kind of see, as they're kind of setting, and it's been a long time since I've seen The Exorcist proper.
Sure.
But it seemed to me that this was already more, and this is before the actual exorcism in The Conjuring took place. It seemed to me that was more of the lineage of this movie that I was watching. And yeah, they go into there, and I'm like, oh man, this is even more than that, because I could see the sequels at that point. Sure. I could see, I want to know the story behind all of that, and not just because it's a room full of stuff that looks weird, but they had already set up a world where you were like, oh man, this goes on forever.
Right,
and you want to know about it,
and that's kind of the thing with the sequels too, is that they chose some really good stuff to kind of fold into that universe and specifically cherry pick. And yeah, it's that moment. There's another movie that has a moment similar to that, and the fact that there's nothing ever followed it up actually infuriates me to no end. Because they do it in Cabin in the Woods.
Oh,
and
I thought you had mixed emotions on that movie.
I do have mixed emotions about the movie. I think there is some good stuff and there's some bad stuff to it. It's not as it's a solid flick, but there is a moment and it does kind of have a definitive ending, so they can't really make a sequel to it, but they can make prequels for sure.
Sure.
But it's something similar in that there's a room where they're going to decide, the people that are being caught kind of decide what monster is going to get them, but they don't know they're making that choice. And you want to see all of the different monsters, and you kind of, again, you get them at the end a little bit. There's a big cluster mess at the end that where things happen, but that's this is another one of those, but way more serious, and Annabelle is a great example. Yeah. Annabelle, somehow David Sandberg, who did Shazam,
nice.
Yeah, okay. He did Annabelle, whatever the origin.
There's 3 of them, I think I saw at least.
I can't remember what it's called. It's Annabelle. It's Annabelle's. Yeah, that's it. I think he did Annabelle Creation.
Wow.
a surprisingly good little flick, and getting to know where Annabelle came from. Okay, cool. Like, give me the other ones. And so they all build, and this movie, yeah, that moment is so cool as a world building moment for these films. And if they'd never gone any further, that still would sit in that like monument of, dude, there's so much to mine.
Yeah. So when we get the Warrens and they enter the film kind of in that way, they carry on this kind of feeling of groundedness because they do attack everything as real, and there's this brilliant moment where, because in other movies, and maybe this is just me, when this person walks in, this type of person walks in, it's always a scam artist, right? They're always, they'll I feel something, something bad happened here. And
right.
say
The
that
medium.
to the family that they're trying to get money out of. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliantly, they keep all those conversations between the Warrens. They are not invested in convincing the family there's something wrong with their house or, for profit at all. And it's not focused on so much. It's really just kind of a smart decision that they make, that all those conversations go on between them because obviously they believe it, because obviously it's real.
Right.
So again, it introduces science in a way, because also you kind of let out that breath of relief a little bit. You're like, okay, we're getting somewhere. The lights are on. They're setting up all the cameras. We're gonna figure this thing out.
The EVPs are sitting on, turned on.
All of that, but again, they're still doing it in a way that's like, okay, we're just doing this because it's real and it's what we do. And while you feel safe for a second when that starts to happen, and you think almost that it turns into a different movie, it doesn't. You're right back into it. You're unsafe all over again, and probably even worse off than before.
Right. Because now you've introduced more people into a problem that is very real.
Yeah.
You're bringing in more bystanders.
It's great. Like, the movie is so compelling from the get-go, but especially when they get together and it becomes the Warrens movie, essentially, when that point of view does definitely change.
Right.
It's totally compelling.
So what we end up with is the mother, Carolyn, she decides that they need to do something. And so she gets a hold of the Warrens, and she gets a hold of them because I think she saw something about the Annabelle doll. So that's how she knew they were in the area or what have you.
Yeah, she shows up at one of their lectures.
I
can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it just stuff got so bad that she sought them out. Yeah, and I don't think we actually find out how she got there, but
so she ends up explaining it. They have the conversations, and they do come to the house. They investigate it, and they not immediately, but pretty quickly go, okay, this is likely haunted, and we may need to exorcise the house, but we can't do an exorcism without the Catholic Church's approval. So to get the Catholic Church's approval, we have to provide evidence and we have to ask questions. And this actually is another really great part where they know it's real. There is no question to any of these people, this is real. They have to then go to the deacon or the priest or whoever he is.
It's a father something
and it's somebody that they've clearly worked with before, who obviously is aware of this stuff as well and believes it, because he tells them, you guys can't ask for anything, you're not Catholic, I'll do it. And
the family hasn't been baptized, they're not even churchgoers really for any religion.
So it becomes this interesting, like there becomes this kind of two-part thing where they found out that the house is they've got the history of the house, and I can't remember the name of the ghost, the person that actually is haunting them, because she has a weird name.
Bathsheba.
There you go. Bathsheba
is the witch. Yeah.
And we find out the great backstory as to why she's there and why she's haunting the house, and that the family finds out that there were suicides and murders in the house, and one of them being one of those great moments is the hanging on the tree. It's a beautiful visual. They use it on the cover of the film. The tree is on the cover.
They built that tree too. That was one of the things. Like, the house was already standing. They scouted a lot of stuff, but they built that tree.
That tree is an amazing looking tree. So they did a great job with it. And then that actually, but all of that leads us to Ed and Lorraine with their assistant and the sheriff, they put cameras and bells and EVP stuff and all of that around the house to try and get the evidence they need. And they spend the night in the house and everything. And we get some pretty, like, maybe the goriest and grossest thing in the movie is the vomiting, the blood into.
Sure. Yeah. The actual possession. They go through the 3 stages of
grief.
No, yeah.
There's only 3 of them now.
In a way. No, and I can't remember what they are. The last one is possession. Oh, oppression, something, oppression, and possession.
Yeah, oppression, suppression, possession.
Suppression, sure.
I think maybe.
And we see that the last step, the possession, where the thing actually throws up blood into Lily Taylor's mouth. Lily Taylor?
Yeah.
Lily Taylor?
Yeah.
And that doesn't resurface until later, yes, it becomes the true successor, I think, to The Exorcist, where they're having to perform that. And when I say there's not an ounce of fat on this movie, like at the very beginning, we're told, given that background, like the true story stuff comes after the movie hits the ground running with that Annabelle story. And we get that they're demonologists, and we get that Ed is the only non-ordained demonologist recognized by the Catholic Church. And it leads up to I like to ruin movies by learning the truth behind them and all this stuff.
I was going to say, this is kind of a movie where I kind of love knowing the actual backstory, and it doesn't actually affect the movie to me.
I'll give you that, because enough of it is true-ish, or whatever reported, that you're like, okay, like all of those deaths are recorded. Like that house, like a lot of people did die in it for generations in a bunch of weird ways. So,
right.
That's kind of strange.
That's a little weird, man.
What definitely didn't happen was that Ed performed an exorcism at the Perron house. But in the film, it builds up to that spot where they're like, we need to do the Exorcist, and she's like, look at her, we don't have time, she's going to die. So Ed's like, okay, I'll do it. And they're like, what? You said you couldn't do it. And he's like, you got a better idea? Like, it's one of the perfect moments and leads to a fantastic ending in the film. But it's still done really well as far as the movie making goes.
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely. It's great that they were able to take a real life situation, write a script, create a movie, make a movie, and then they did it good.
I like how we break it down.
That's I think what we do best. So
hopefully the rest of this is explaining why we said that and what, how deeper that goes. But yes, that's essentially it good.
Right. And so we're given it like we do get another bit with Annabelle in the movie where Elizabeth Bathory, it's not her.
Bathsheba. Yeah.
Bathsheba.
And of all, another real person that exists, maybe this is where we were going. In fact, retroactively, this is where we were going with this. Bathsheba was a real person that has existed. She was acquitted. I think she was possibly accused of being a witch, yes, but acquitted and died an old lady. None of the actual hanging actually happened. But in this movie, she was kind of the primary instigator, I guess. Like, she fashioned herself an actual witch, sacrificed her child, and killed herself to put a curse on the land, wherein she is kind of the one that, like a lot of the other people, that moment in the basement you mentioned where she's able to get into contact with one of the other deaths.
Yeah.
There's a toy that's Horatio or Horace. I can't remember what the kid's name is. Anyways, it was a kid's toy, and that one of the girls sees him a bunch, and he shows up in the mirror. It's a real great toy. I'm sure there's replicas of it out there. Maurice, is that it?
Maurice, sure. Maybe?
Some people call me Maurice.
Woo!
And the witch has been possessing people for years then to kill their own children. Like, that was another dead person that also killed herself because the witch made her kill. So basically, they're unraveling the story that exists. In fact, at one point, I got the feeling that they tried to connect Bathsheba to one of their other cases. Like, they had been chasing after Bathsheba for a while, or from a previous case. I don't think that was ever really cemented, so maybe I'm just making it up.
Yeah, I don't remember I don't remember that particularly, but
it comes in the because the other thing with the Warrens is that one of their cases, she looked right into the eyes of the possessed person and saw something incredible, and she started screaming, and she was never the same since. Locked herself in a room for 8 days.
Right.
It's in the discussion where Patrick Wilson's character Ed. I just want to call him Patrick Wilson, is about to go back to finish this or whatever, and she says, let's finish it. Like she's talking about it like, let me go, I'm going with you no matter what you say, because we're in this together, let's finish this. She's talking about it in a way like it's a continuation of what they've been doing, like the demon she saw in that other thing.
I
don't
guess
know.
I took that particular line as more of a that this was the first possession since that last one, and that she's ready to face the situation again.
Okay. I guess maybe it's some brilliant writing then, because we can see it both ways, or kind of wonder. Yeah,
no, when you say it that way, I can totally see that she could have been. Yeah, absolutely, I could see
that's the illusion, right? That let's finish this. This is a continuation of, at the very least, her emotional journey or whatever.
Yeah.
Her healing. So that's where we were going.
That is where we were going, and this does take us to the finale, and you know, we can spoil this, and we kind of already did in that
a lot of it, yeah.
In that there is an exorcism, and the exorcism is successful, but
oh man, I did not buy that ending though. I thought for sure we were gonna get, you know,
the jump scare ending,
an evil glint in Vera's eye or something, you know, like it had passed to her.
Sure, and I love that that's not the case, but I also love that the actual ending of the movie is they do get approval from the Vatican after the fact. They found out that they had it. They come home, and they immediately find out they've got another job waiting for them, and they take the music box from the Perron's house, and he puts it in the item collection. And I love that the ending is them leaving, they close the door, and then the music box opens up and begins playing by itself.
And that is the no evil glint, but that is kind of the it's not over ending, I guess. But honestly, it so smartly leaves so much under the surface still. Like, it leaves so many dangling threads in a way. Like, you maybe watch this and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of a happy ending. It does really tie everything up. But then why does it feel like there's so many unanswered questions? And for a movie, again, that is so concise and does appear to answer all of those questions and have rules, like, it just adds to that whole, oh man, this could just go on forever. Like, make me another one.
There's a mystique to it, and it's not even Rebecca Romaine Stamos, which I think it's way better than the
Jennifer.
Well, no, Rebecca Romaine was way better than J-Lo ever was. You could you could tell how unhappy Jennifer Lawrence was every second of that movie. She was wearing the makeup.
I refuse to engage in this unless we're going to finally do that X-Men show. I still have the notes from all of my X-Men movies. I know you didn't finish the run.
I need to finish. God, which ones are left? Apocalypse. Basically, all the bad ones.
Need to finish the bad ones.
It was the bad ones. Yeah,
that's why.
So that's a bummer.
Anyway, this is way better than Rebecca Romaine Stamos or Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique.
Wow, that's pretty mystical. I also think one of the reasons, though, that those dangling threads are not, they're not like the kind of threads where you go, well, that just like, they're not finishing out what happened with this and that. A lot of the threads that are left are, we know that while the possession situation is over, we're immediately given that we know the Warrens still have things to do. They've got another job right away. So that's interesting. We know that there's things from the beginning, from the discussion with the note of that you brought up earlier, where they mentioned that getting the guns off the street better in here than out there. Well, the thing that actually, solidifies is that you take a gun off the street, you put it in a room, it's still a weapon that's usable. These items are still very clearly in possession of something. So you've got all of that, but then you also have, well, this family just went through this horrific thing. There's that thread that you don't need to be filled in on. You don't need to know how they come out of it other than they do, right? Like, there's some stuff there that just, it's not necessarily dying of importance. I have to know it, but boy, what happened? What about that? You know,
none of the ending changes the reality about any of it, and whether or not that's the reality within the film as portrayed or real life, since this is quote unquote based on a true story, like none of that changes. Right. You're like, okay, good, everything's fine. Wait, it still just happened.
Right.
You know, like there's very little comfort.
There's
in that essentially.
And I think, and I do like that there's a you know, this is kind of the funny, it's like the opposite almost of the nihilism conversation, because while the movie ends and it kind of has like there's the negative aspect of, well, the music box opens up and there's still this room full of possessed items, you still have two people that are doing their jobs, their lives, to stop those things from impacting others. And so there's like, it's kind of it kind of throws that bit of nihilism on the edge, because you can argue that Saw does have a bit of a nihilistic view, in that, you know, Jigsaw's entire gimmick is that you've hurt people, you've done bad things in your life. If you want to be a better person, you need to hurt yourself. That's the whole gimmick behind Saw, is that everybody can survive the traps, but they have to hurt themselves significantly to do so.
And another movie that really rode that wave of the term that you love, you know, torture porn. Like, I feel like that and Hostel were the movies I heard mentioned in the same breath, or maybe the same article that I read and got that.
200%. Yeah. I mean, they always were. And they're, again, they're movies where the people. I will always say, I think the people that claim a movie is torture porn, I just don't know that you've watched the movie. You know, I don't know, but
or certainly that it was made for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that.
Or I'm sorry, people who say that the movie was not made for them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, you know, I hate melodrama porn. Okay, so what do you want?
I don't even want to know what that is.
It's probably any movie with Joe Piscopo, because it's not going to be funny.
I don't even still know what that is or want to know.
Oh my gosh, if you don't know Joe Piscopo.
Although his episode on Star Trek The Next Generation is one of the best.
Was it?
You got there yet?
No, but was it?
TVVB. Stay tuned. It was.
Oh.
So if I had to give it stars, I'm sorry, should I?
Yeah.
97 stars.
Out of 96.5.
It's a good movie. Like it. Going to watch the sequels, quite possibly before Octoberween next year. I don't know.
I will say this.
Okay.
For next Octoberween, I'm totally fine with doing Insidious. I actually have an active want to rewatch Conjuring 2. So
okay,
I'm going to do that. I'm not going to say we're doing it for the show next week, but you should definitely watch it. It's worth it. And for a couple of very key moments.
Hey, yeah, we could, in fact, in reading more about this, Juan really had The Haunting in mind. And I mean, so many properties are tied up. That's probably part of the reason this is good. I didn't have any super bad trivia. I've got some kind of lame trivia. Because most of it's good about how he really did want the feel of The Haunting. You mentioned they got another job after that. They got another job being the Amityville Horror. Like that was also based on all this, and that's where they went next. That's the whole Long Island reference there. So maybe we did this out of order. If you don't want to do The Haunting next week and would rather do The Conjuring 2, that's fine with me. Again, I kind of give you full veto of the...
Yeah, no, I love the concept of doing either of those, except we're gonna go ahead and do His House on Netflix.
Oh, the Dark Horse.
Yes,
gotcha. Okay.
Because I did finally watch that trailer, and I only got about a minute in before I said, nope, I'm not watching the rest of the trailer. I don't want the thing to ruin it for me.
All right.
I am super into the concept behind that movie already.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right.
I think we're doing His House.
Okay, so a movie neither of us have seen or even heard anything about. I did only watch the trailer and was like,
It got about a minute in, and they kind of had a little bit of the conceit showing up, and I went done on the trailer. I gotta watch this movie.
Watch a minute of that trailer, decide for yourself, and come back and check us out next week for His House. You can find us at bookclubformovies.com. I said perfectly.
You did 200%.
Or Facebook and Twitter. This week is another one of those weeks I have no rest of the show. I'm in the middle of like 3 or 4 movies here. We hit our data cap, so I've kind of been catching up on the TV. I already had queued, so I no Netflix or anything like that. So if you've got something to finish out the rest of the show here,
the
time is yours.
I just might. Give me 1 second. I forgot to write things down.
I mean, okay, while you do that.
Yeah. Take your time.
Because I don't know if upon finishing this, I think I have 30 minutes left, if I'll want to say anything more about it. So I'll just ask if you've seen it. Final Fantasy Advent Children Complete.
Yeah. Yes.
You have seen that?
Yeah.
Do you have words or?
It was
okay, maybe
better.
I'll save that.
It's better than Spirits Within.
See, I don't even know that.
But only,
okay, we'll save it.
But only in the sense that I think they got characters a little bit better there. But
okay.
Spirits Within,
I have that queued too, and that one I do kind of want to show to my family because I remember very little about it. Speaking of the Spirits Within,
so we watched it not too long ago because Beth had never seen it, and I remember really liking it when it came out. Like, that's a movie that definitely would benefit from them just like doing what they do with video games and doing an up-res version of it and redoing all the animation, because some of the animation, like the concepts are there, but boy, it does not hold up from a looks perspective. It's really rough to watch.
That would be one of the things I thought maybe did, because I remember when it first came out, watching that, being like, you can't tell if they're real people or not.
And that's the, I remember while we were watching it, I was telling Beth, I was like, dude, you do not have any idea what we all thought of this when it first came out. Like you don't realize how big of a thing this was, and then the fact that it just
I'll save it then. We'll have a Final Fantasy rest of the show with Advent Children, and I think there's one other that I have queued too. I've got all those and all the Resident Evil movies kind of set up to. Yeah, great.
I mean, are you gonna? So I showed a couple people. We were talking about this right around Halloween about video games and Resident Evil, and this person had never seen the movie, but they play the game, and I was like, oh yeah, you have no idea what these like weird, crazy bits and bobs are about how different this is, and and they were like, no, and we watched it, and they were like, when does Resident Evil start?
No, you don't understand. Are you familiar with Paul W.S. Anderson? But no, I'm talking about the CGI movies. There's a fair amount of those.
Oh yeah.
Also.
Actually, what the one I did watch, I really liked, and I don't remember what it was called, but actually
there's a few. Yeah, actually, I was surprised.
It was an earlier one, and I want to say it was a Leon Kennedy one, because I don't know that they're all Leon Kennedy. I think they bounce around. I think it was Leon.
Couldn't tell you. Yeah,
I think it was Leon, and I feel like it had. I don't remember. I remember liking them though.
Okay. All right.
So, yes, the couple things that I did watch very recently, Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse.
Oh yeah.
I have not watched that since the theater. We did see it in the theater. Man, that movie is so good.
Perfect film.
Beth and I watched it, and she can be hit or miss with the superhero movies, in that she can be into them, like, oh yeah, I'll watch it, I'll be into it, and like she'll like actively watch it. Other times it's, yeah, sure, it's on, I don't, whatever, it's not doing anything for me. She was totally like same in the theater, like totally
very different. Yeah, that movie.
I can't wait for the sequel. I'm so excited to see more story in the Spider-Verse. I hope that they continue to do stuff like that. I am so interested to see how they are able to improve or change the animation while keeping it the same, because that is such a unique movie. Nothing looks like that movie. And
did you get a 4K copy of that thing? Whatever you did?
I don't have a 4K TV, dude.
Oh,
I don't even have a 4K monitor.
Alrighty.
I'm still rolling 1080p. But that movie is fantastic. Miles is just delightful. Peter B. Parker, great. I love.
He does too. He beats Parker.
I love the there's a moment in the movie, and I think I rewatched it 3 times just because of the way the way they animated him and the way he says it. It's right after the Miles and Peter Parker meet, and they go to the burger restaurant that doesn't exist on Peter Parker's Earth, and he's eating the burger. Oh, it's so good. Oh, this burger is so good. This place closed down like 6 years ago on my Earth. This is amazing.
Right.
The the waitress walks up, drops the bill. He stops everything he's doing and he looks at Miles and goes, "You got money? I'm not exactly liquid right now." And it's just, and Miles, the way he looks at him, he goes, "You're not going to be a very good teacher." It's just one of those great moments. And then every moment that Gwen is utilized, fantastic. I still, while Mulaney is great as Porker, that movie, I want a Spider-Verse movie of Spider-Man Noir. I want the Nick Cage.
Really?
Dude, the look of the way they animated him in particular, when they show the tiny bits, you only get like a flash of his world, but that plus Cage's whole dynamic, like, yeah, I definitely want to see that movie.
Good point. Okay. Yeah. I would do a whole nother movie from any of the universes.
Definitely. I'm totally into it. Other movie I watched, hadn't seen this one in a long time, was my introduction to Mr. Red Eye himself, Cillian Murphy. I think probably a lot of people's introduction to him. 28 Days Later.
Oh, I almost said Batman Begins. Almost.
Not the movie with Sandra Bullock, who people were very confused by. They were like, when does Sandra Bullock show up in this? Because 28 Days came out right around the same time. And
really?
That movie.
I didn't remember that at all.
Oh, yeah. It came around right around the same time. She's an alcoholic, and it's a movie about being a drunk. And she's in rehab. Also, good movie, actually. Has some Rupert Everett, I think is in it. Maybe not Rupert Everett. Maybe it's the other guy that I get confused with Rupert Everett. I don't know why.
You can confuse somebody with Rupert Everett?
Yeah, he's another British guy, and he came into my life like visually in film at the same time as Rupert Everett. So I cross paths with them. They don't look anything alike, really. They definitely don't sound alike either.
That makes more sense.
But it also has Alan Tudyk doing a weird German accent, and it's really great. And the only part of the movie I will ever remember is they're doing like trust exercises, and they're doing like an obstacle course, and he's on like a zip line or something, and the zip line gets stuck, and he's got like a whole he's in a harness, and he's like swinging around on the harness, and he goes, "Oh, look at my package." It's like really accentuated by the harness. It's ridiculous.
Sounds just like Alan.
It's really funny. 28 Days Later, jeez, man.
Holds up?
Danny Boyle. Yo, yeah. Holy crap, does that movie hold up? One of the absolute best introductions to any movie I've ever seen in my life is Cillian Murphy walking around London with nothing going on. And
that's he wakes up in the hospital, right?
Yeah, it's the Walking Dead. He wakes up just like Rick does, except this is a way more interesting version of that, because the way they filmed it was so like, holy crap. How were they able to? I remember watching it at the time. And so here's my backstory with this movie, actually. It's kind of an interesting maybe thing. So one of my very, very good friends, Nathaniel, from high school, I'd known him for years. He decided to join the Navy. And in doing so, his first, he did his basic training. And then he was, I guess he was given the option. Did he want to do shore leave, or did he want to do shore duty, or did he want to do boat duty? I guess I don't know what the hell you call it.
Yeah, but he make up more words.
But he essentially said,
"Ocean life.
I want to
floaty boats.
He wanted to do shore stuff first." And so they stationed him just outside of London, and so he was living in England for 2 years or so. And in that time, he saw a number of movies that didn't come over here first. 28 Days Later being one of them. He told me about it a year before it hit America. And he told me about how great this movie was, and this crazy like zombie flick. You're gonna love it. Finally comes out, and that whole opening sequence, I remember going, how the hell did they do that? That's
Right.
incredible. Like, he's walking around and it doesn't look like a green screen. It looks like he's walking around downtown London and there is nobody there. Amazing. And then Brendan Gleeson shows up, and he's got, you love Brendan Gleeson. Everybody loves Brendan Gleeson. Yeah, man, that's a great movie. Cillian Murphy is fantastic. That whole flick is great. I started the sequel, which has not as good a beginning, but real close, maybe a little more heartbreaking, because I don't know if you remember. Did you ever see the sequel?
I'm not remembering even the first all that well, except for the beginning. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely check out the first if you
can.
can.
I would have been in film school, so
yeah. 28 weeks later, had Robert Carlyle take over the main lead role from Cillian Murphy.
Does it say Cillian Murphy's character doesn't continue, right?
No.
If I remember, it's like a completely different movie, because it's almost like Alien to Aliens in a way.
It's like kind of, yeah. It takes place later on. The infection is taken over significantly more of the world or whatever, and it takes place 28 weeks after that.
28 weeks, yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah, and but the intro to that one is Robert Carlyle and his family in a farmhouse, basically. And the infected are attacking the farmhouse, and his wife and daughter, I think, get stuck in a room, and he gets out, and they're screaming at him to help them. And he looks at them, and he's a coward, and he runs. And he watches and hears them get torn apart. Like, you don't see anything. It's them getting pulled away from the window as the camera pulls back, and you see him bolting as fast as he can through a field. And it's
maybe I didn't see it.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Really great intro. The story overall is not quite as strong. It's not, again, it's another sequel, so it's hard for them to improve on that story. It's
right.
But
is there a third movie?
Not in that series, but it's something that Danny Boyle has written.
Oh,
like
really?
It's ready to go.
Is it 28 years?
It might be, actually. Probably be a good idea.
I mean, yeah.
World is over. Yeah, that's a super fun flick. I got a couple of other things, but I think maybe I'll wait till next week to talk more about them. They're Mario Bava films from the 60s and 70s.
Oh, what's the Italian?
He is.
What's the Italian horror genre?
Giallo.
That's
Giallo.
Yes.
Mario Bava. They are not really. Okay. No. Mario.
I remembered a thing.
Yeah, no. Mario Bava. He was more. Bava was a kind of the Italian version of, I'm gonna do everything on my own. I'm gonna learn how to make effects. I'm gonna learn how to be a cinematographer. I'm gonna write things. I'm gonna do all of it.
That's a strong, from what I remember, strong Italian tradition, actually. Like, we watched a lot of indie, quote unquote, movies from a long time, like from the moment film actually made it over there. Thing,
The one in particular, and actually I would recommend to anybody, is Black Sunday. Fantastic. Black Sabbath, also fantastic movie. That's a good one. If you've never seen Black Sabbath, definitely watch that.
Those are two different movies?
They are. Yeah, Black Sabbath and Black Sunday are totally different movies. But those are two of the ones I watched. And
what day does Black Sabbath take place? Is it on a Saturday or a Sunday?
Well, it's definitely on the Sabbath.
Sabbath actually means Saturday.
Yes, I asked as a Jew. Yeah. We have Shabbat. So, what do you think it means? Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. So Black Sabbath, though, might actually be of interest to you in particular, because it's an anthology. And the anthology is hosted by Boris Karloff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is what you're going to talk about next week, or are we just riffing at this
No,
point?
I am going to. I'll talk about it more next week.
Okay. I like that. Black Sabbath.
Yeah, Black
Sabbath.
Sabbath.
You're right. Yes, I am intrigued.
Yeah. Extreme Extreme Italiano. It's good stuff.
Was Boris Karloff Italian? Is that where that? I always thought he was like German, actually.
Boris Karloff
European.
he's not Italian.
Okay.
He is
Frankenstein. Yeah, I get it. He's made up of different people. I understand.
He's English, actually, but
okay.
You know.
So come back next week for a little bit of that, and I'll have internet again. So yeah, I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about too. The Social Dilemma, if you want to hear about that Netflix documentary.
Okay.
And there was something else, I don't know, but at least that. So the horror continues from all avenues.
Yeah,
that much we'll say.
That's for sure. If you're talking about that kind of stuff.
And if you want to do the same, let us know. It's podcast@bookclubformovies.com. Facebook and Twitter, as always. I try to keep an eye on those things so as to reply to you all. So if you are you all, thank you.
Yeah. And admittedly, if you want to get a hold of me for some stupid reason, email us, because that's the only way I'm going to see it. I don't really social media anymore.
Very true. Yes, at that email we said, or you can do, I think we still have our own, right? Matt?
Yeah, you can do Matt at zerohitpoints.com.
0 hit points, right? Yeah. So come back or continue or whatever for that next week.
Yeah. His House.
His House. That's right. Yes, thank you. Watch that specifically, certainly for next week.
On the Netflix.
On the Netflix. It is a Netflix original, I think, right? Yes?
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
That is true.
Amazon Prime. Pluto. Shut up.
Bye!